Welcome to HR Voices, a podcast for independent HR and people professionals and the businesses they support. HR Voices is brought to you by the expert team at HR Independence Limited. We hope you enjoy.
Hello, welcome to HR Voices podcast. We're excited to bring to you in 2025 new episodes of HR Voices podcast. So as usual, I've got my co-host Charlotte Allfrey with me, and our regular listeners will notice that we haven't got any guests with us today. And it's because we are touching on a very, very interesting subject that is close to our hearts. And we thought we would take the opportunity to speak to you about what it actually means, and also how, if you are listening, whether you are an HR consultant, an asset leader or manager, or even a supervisor within your team, you may be able to support your team members and your organization through that. Today, we'll be talking about Blue Monday. So, Charlotte, can you, for the purpose of our audience listening, can you explain what Blue Monday means?
Yeah, so it's an interesting concept that we're all supposed to be very, very depressed. So the third Monday in January, it's supposed to be the saddest Monday of the year, the saddest day of the year. Now, it was developed quite some years ago by a chap who sort of put some mathematical calculations together, although I don't think they were ever scientifically grounded. And he determined that, you know, having had Christmas and credit card bills coming in and getting the other side of having, you know, some downtime, that this third Monday in January was the saddest day of the year. However, it later became known to be a bit of a PR stunt by a travel company looking to, you know, make people book a holiday and to go off and to avoid Blue Monday. And actually, the person who originally coined the phrase and sort of did this so-called mathematical calculation tries to distance himself from Blue Monday as a concept. And, you know, as I say, it's not in any scientific grounding or has no scientific basis. So it's an interesting thing, but it's something a lot of people talk about. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think although there's no scientific evidence or empirical evidence to back the fact that Blue Monday is actually the longest, saddest day of the year, it has kind of almost become a cultural thing for some people, isn't it? I think it goes back as far as 2005. So this will be
Right.
its 20th year, where in crisis, people have either worried or waking up and saying, nope, I'm not getting up today. I'm not going to work today. Duvet day, I'm just staying in, calling in sick, etc. So it has got connotations. So I think the background to it then, so although there's no empirical scientific evidence to it, and like we just said, people still talk about it, and it's a thing for some people, whether it's scientifically proven or not. January is a long month, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that was why, you know, you and I, when we were chatting about content for the podcast, I said that I was sort of happy to share my experiences with you and our listeners, because I generally, I mean, you know, is Monday going to be the day where I'm really down and dowdy and grumpy and miserable? No, it's not. Actually, I'm like it for most of January. I find January a very difficult month. And, you know, I talk to clients about it. I talk to other consultants about it. It's not something I'm happy to share the thing. And it comes, I think, potentially off of the back of December being an incredibly busy month. One, because you're trying to do all the stuff you do for Christmas, you know, trying to get ready for celebrations, family, parties, and goodness knows what else. And as you know, I had a significant birthday before Christmas as well. So I had an extra party. So there was a lot going on in terms of, but actually then there was a lot of stuff going on with, you know, clients looking to try and wrap things up before Christmas, because they know they're going to take a break. So quite a lot of work and a lot of pressure to get some things wrapped up. So a lot going on in the business. And actually, then sort of I always describe it as I've crashed into Christmas and then I've had a really good time and a proper rest. I've had a good couple of weeks rest, particularly how Christmas fell this year as well. And most of my clients sort of close between Christmas and New Year or are on skeleton staff. So for once, the emails stop coming and the requests stop coming. So it really is a proper good rest and a break. And then when we come back into January, I just find it really, really hard to get ramped back up into that same headspace. And I'm tired. I feel the repercussions of having that rest. I've actually rested and then I'm really, really tired.
I think you're right there, Charlotte, because a lot of people listening to us can relate. The lead up to Christmas, whether in our personal life, business, etc., there is that rush to really wrap up the year, isn't it? And that there is that rush to look forward as well from business context. You are thinking of, okay, what lies ahead for the year? What lies in 2025? What is my business? How are we going to do stuff and you asking the who, why, when, how questions, and basically thinking about budgets, thinking about finances, everything. If you are in a leadership or management position within your organization, and in the case of consultants, you have to do all that.
Yeah.
Then in addition to that, you've got the Christmas, the personal thing, the social aspects of it, and everything else that you need to do leading up to Christmas. So you kind of almost like that crash into Christmas or crash into the end of the year, even if you don't celebrate Christmas. And you manage to have a bit of rest because everyone else, similar to you, is having a quiet time, it's a downtime for most people. That period almost feels like the summer break, isn't it? Where most people are away or doing stuff. So there's that quiet period where you can almost kind of recalibrate to get your head back into shape and into gear. So yeah, again, then come beginning of the year, first day back at work, you kind of go,
I know. It's definitely a slow burn for a couple of days. But of course, then we're into, and again, this is really about society and societal beliefs and norms. Because then what you do is you have all this fun over Christmas, lots of nice food, lots of nice drinks, lots of nice discussions and parties and, collaboration and seeing people you haven't seen for ages, all those lovely, lovely things. And then bang, we're into January and you've got to be healthy and you've got to deprive yourself. And it's dry January and it's veganuary and it's, don't eat this, don't eat that, get to the gym. The gyms are packed. And it's just not a concept but the pressure is there.
I think that sort of ties in beautifully with the next bit, which is for New Year resolutions. But also it's one of the fundamental contributions to the feeling of, oh God, I failed and I've already my resolutions. Like you're saying, there's dry January, there's veganuary, there is all sorts of, I'm going to hit the gym every day and I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to manage my finances because I may have overspent Christmas and during it, etc. And then you get to that point where you realistically think it's a bit too much, so I can't do it. And that it kind of all weighs on you, doesn't it? And that can lead to that feeling of sadness because you almost feel like you failed. Whilst in reality, is it an issue of expectations and managing expectations, what we can do realistically in January and beyond?
I think it is about managing expectations. And so one of the, we'll talk potentially about some of the tips and tricks that I sort of have trying to manage January, but I don't set New Year's resolutions because I'm too naughty. And as soon as I set a goal or something that says I'm not going to do that, I immediately want to do lots of that. and then I sort of have this internal battle. So for me, I just, yeah, and actually my business year is in line with the financial year. So whilst I do some reflection as to where have we got to in December, I'm not quite in that what for the new year, because actually my new financial year starts in April. But it's a time for reflection, definitely, and it's a time for looking forward, because but again, is that because everybody tells us that that's the time for looking back and looking forward and reflecting, or I think we all have to learn how to do us, you do you, I'll do me.
I think the time for reflection thing probably comes as a result of, not necessarily because of what society expects or because of what everyone expects, but I think it comes from having a downtime.
Yeah.
When you have a downtime, you tend to reflect, you tend to think, you tend to look at, oh, how are things, etc., and how have things been, and how would I like things to be going forward. I think certainly for me, it does work that way. When you've got a bit of a downtime, you've got that, you get that headspace, and you start to reflect on actually what happened. And that,
Yeah, you see, so on the other side of that, potentially downtime is quite dangerous, isn't it? Because it gives you time to think.
I wouldn't say
You can't win, can you?
I think downtime is very, very important because it does help you to rest. It helps you to recharge your battery, to recalibrate, and sets you. I think that period between Christmas and New Year, where there's almost that quietness, is essential for you to recalibrate and get ready for the new year ahead, irrespective of, say, business terms, when your financial year is, because you really kind of need a headspace to kind of almost regroup, and sort of be ready, isn't it, to go ahead. So I think it's a necessary evil.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked interesting. Actually, meditation and guided meditation can be really good and helpful as well, because when you're just so busy and your head is so full of stuff, downtime's quite hard. But something like guided meditation actually can let you sort of download, but in a focused, guided way. So I definitely do find guided meditation quite helpful.
Yeah. I think that is very true. But one of the things that I wanted to really explore, because then I know in HR roles, you know that come the beginning of the year, there are a few resignations, aren't there? Where
Yeah.
people come in and then they kind of go, right, I've had enough of this job and I'm leaving. And also, there tend to be lots of grievances raised as well,
Oh, I know.
isn't it?
Yeah, so Christmas party issues, or I suppose people getting to a point where they've sort of got to the end of the year and reflected and come in and thought, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And put forward grievances or concerns. So yeah, I mean, from an HR role perspective, I don't think any January is complete without a grievance and a Christmas party or a Secret Santa complaint. That's a given really each year. So yeah, so that there's that. And then of course there is, and again, is it a societal norm? It's new year, new start, new year, new life, new job, so I think people do reflect and think, no, I'm going to hand my notice in, I'm going to find something else. And of course we have that lull in the recruitment market, don't we, in December, because you get to a certain point in December where your clients sort of say, there's no point recruiting, we've got people out on holiday, I don't want to do it over Christmas, let's park it, let's do it in January. So the job market does, by the middle of January, sort of start to pick up as well. So there's definitely that sort of shift and movement in the recruitment market and people moving roles.
Yeah. And I think one of the other impacts potentially of Blue Monday might well be on people's mental health.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, there's a lot of pressure, isn't there, to provide for Christmas and do Christmas. And so there's a lot of cost that comes with that, and there's always, I mean, people like Martin Lewis that always say, if you can't afford it, don't spend it. but people do put themselves under pressure. So actually in January there can be a financial burden, where you're sort of looking back at what December has cost you, and credit card bills land, and we all have to think about our finances. And of course, we're hearing in the news again, lots of stuff around cost of living, inflation, financial pressures, increases in energy caps, and all that sort of stuff. So it's a bit of a worry, isn't it?
It is indeed. And also, there's the other side of it where some people, whether they celebrate Christmas or not, it's normally time to spend with family and friends.
Yeah.
And people in situations where they don't have family around them or are not surrounded by friends during that period can also find it quite difficult. So when you go back into the workplace beginning of January, and there's a lot of reminiscing around how was your Christmas, and oh, I did this and I did that and I did that. And others find that, well, oh God, my life must be so sad, so hard, etc.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that contribute directly towards Blue Monday, but also might well contribute to somebody, well, feeling quite low as well, generalizing that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, there are people that haven't got a lot of family around them, or, can't see people because of distance and, all sorts of reasons. So I think we just have to be mindful in January, really, maybe more than any other month. I don't know. I don't know what you think about that. Whether, I mean, as HR people, we need to be just generally mindful of people and their well-being. But I think in January we do need to pay particular attention to how people are and how they're feeling, and how their mental health is, and how we can support them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that can lead directly into the support aspects of it. So if again, there's an HR manager or HR consultant, HR director listening, or there's a business leader, business manager, etc., listening, saying, oh, so what can I do to support employees? What practically can people do to support people within the workplace?
So that's a really interesting question, because I think there's two elements to this. I think there's elements of self-care, and perhaps we'll touch on those in a moment. I've got some ideas around, what I do to try and sort of keep myself moving in January. And there is an element from, an employer perspective around how you support people. I mean, good management and best practice is that, you should be having regular check-ins with people anyway. And if you are having regular check-ins with people, if somebody is struggling, then hopefully they would tell you. You might have a higher sickness rate of incidental sickness, a few more duvet days, or, you just might have somebody that actually straight up says, I'm really struggling. I've got some mental health issues, and they might be off for a longer period of time. So I think spot the patterns and keep an eye on the sickness. I guess you might have people booking incidental holiday as well. They might just be job hunting, but who knows? But you keep an eye on your holiday and your sickness. Again, benefits packages can be very valuable if you've got an employee assistance program or a cash plan, where people can get, find access to resources around health and well-being, and if they want to, diet and exercise and New Year's resolutions and all that jazz. But, I think we need to be looking out for our colleagues. I don't think this is necessarily just a leader down thing. I think we all just need to be looking out for each other. And if you think somebody's struggling, have a chat with them. Ask them, are you okay?
Absolutely. And I think the recognition that, okay, Blue Monday, or generally, whether even if you don't want to call it that, generally around this time of the year, people really feel sad for various reasons, sad that it gets darker very quickly. The weather isn't great, it's very cold, and most people are miserable sort of just by looking at the weather and how it comes, etc. Sad because, as we've touched on, financially, there might be a lot of financial strains on people due to spend or overspend, thinking, oh my goodness, 5 more weeks before I get paid again. How am I going to cope this whole month with my shopping and all those things that come with it? and for all sorts of reasons. And again, health wise, all the chocolate, all the pudding, and everything else I ate, I look in the mirror and I can see it. And what am I going to do? So there's a lot of things, factors weighing people down. So I think in terms of the workplace, whether it's HR, whether it's teams, and I think you're very right to say it's not just the management responsibility, it's not just HR responsibility, it's all our responsibility. If we can create a culture where we recognize that it's a tough month, a tough few weeks for people, and we can do things within our reach, within our gift, to make the workplace a better place, welcoming, supportive, warm, in terms of even changing the lighting, etc., getting the lighting right in offices and all those things, just to make sure that people feel a bit of warmth and love around them. That might help.
Yeah, it must help. But I mean, don't forget as well, we haven't touched on this yet, interestingly, but don't forget that actually a lot of people now are working from home or still working in hybrid situations. So actually that sense of isolation and loneliness is a bit more intense, particularly when it's dark in the mornings and it's getting dark quite early. I mean, at least the nights are drawing out a little bit. I have to say I have noticed that, particularly with sort of going out with the dog and that. But you know, we are all sort of potentially a little bit more isolated. So that can make it a bit hard. If you're stuck at home and you're really busy and you haven't really seen anybody all day, you know, you're really looking forward to your family coming in at the end of the day. And if nobody's coming in, then that must be really hard.
Yeah. And also, yes, that there is that, and that there is the aspect of, yes, working from home. And most working hours are during the time of the day where we've got a bit of light, isn't it? And by the time most people finish work, there isn't any sign of light, and it's dark and gloomy outside. And yeah, so all that, the weather definitely. So checking in with your teammates just to see how they are doing, and also having measures in place that can help people working virtually and remotely would be also great as well. And I think, again, sort of that there are things, lots of good things that companies did during COVID when people were working remotely to make sure that employees were looked after, teams came together and did all sorts of things. So having, again, it comes down to the culture of the organization, isn't it? Having a culture where you help your employees, you support them, whether they are working virtually, whether they are working in the office or 100% remote, is quite critical and essential, isn't it? To giving people that sort of support and atmosphere around them. So
yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Yeah, and I think potentially because the sort of pandemic has passed us by now, you know, we probably don't focus quite so much now on supporting remote, well, I don't know, supporting remote teams in the way we did perhaps in the pandemic because everybody was home all the time. I think the hybrid model assumes that people will be okay on the days they're at home, but then they're in the office. So that, you know, that creates connectivity and collaboration, and that's good. So yeah, I think we still just need to be mindful that actually it's a long day when you are working at home, particularly in the dark mornings and evenings.
Yeah. And if we can touch specifically on consultants at this point in time, and then most HR consultants work remotely, isn't it?
Yes.
And do go to clients' offices, like, and some have office space, but not everyone. But in general, most work either by themselves or in very small teams and do work remotely. So I just wanted to highlight that again. If you're an HR consultant working remotely, there are opportunities to connect with other HR consultants. For example, HRI has got Coffee and Connect on Fridays between 11 and 11:30 a.m., where you can just jump on and then connect with other HR consultants going through similar journeys like yourself, to share your highs and your lows, and also just for laughs sometimes, isn't it? And
we do have a giggle, don't we?
To bounce ideas of each other. There's also opportunities possibly in your local area for co-working spaces as well, where you may be able to book in, go to a co-working, and connect with people, whether in HR or outside of HR, etc. But it does give that team or office working feel when you work out of a co-working space. There are networking opportunities available there, and there are more networks. I tell you this, Charlotte, all the time, isn't it? That if you're not careful, you can spend all your time networking and not doing any work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, you've got to get the balance right. Definitely. Definitely got to get the balance right. But I mean, the other aspect of being a consultant, and you and I have been consultants for 10 years. So, we've done it a while. We've got a bit of history. But it sort of comes full circle around to this idea of, is it okay to not be okay? Because actually, when you're dealing with lots of different individual clients in a day, every client you speak to, you potentially have to sort of put a bit of a front on and be happy, and it's great to speak to them, and you want to help them. And actually, to do that several times a day for lots of different people, that's quite tiring when you're feeling really low. And do you actually then say to somebody, when they say to you, "Hi, how are you?" Do you say, "Oh no, I'm really miserable"? You're not going to, are you?
That was also the thing, apart from the fact that you have to be happy in front of your client, which you can be yourself in front of your client, to be fair. But the hardest thing is that a lot of the time clients come to HR because they have issues.
Yeah.
So if they are met with, "Oh God, I'm having such a bad day," then that in itself might not necessarily sit well. So it's
Well,
quite
it's not going to instill confidence, is it?
yeah, it's quite a tricky sort of things, but I think it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And I'm a strong advocate of that because you can't be okay all the time. But you need to be able to recognize that and to be able to sort of decompress almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that it gives you that strength to support your clients and doing the right mindset. Self-care, which
And
is
that's where we get back to self-care. Yeah. But, it's if you think about it, we deal with a lot of stuff where clients come to us for our expertise, which is amazing. It's flattering, it's humbling, and it's very rewarding. But what that means is that we get a lot of complex and sort of meaty issues. And again, if you're feeling a bit low, that's quite hard, because actually what you get is a lot of negative stuff to deal with sometimes. I mean, we all love the call about, "Can you write me an HR strategy?" because that's lovely, or "Can you put me a training plan together?" because that's sort of a nicer thing to do. But actually, a grievance or a disciplinary or a complaint or a whistleblowing or something like that, if you get several of those in January, and potentially you're feeling just a little bit under the weather yourself, or you're struggling to sort of get back into the swing of it, again, that can weigh heavy.
I think that can, and I think thank you for highlighting some of the things that HR consultants and HR professionals generally deal with, which is the heavy load in terms of emotional. It can be quite intense, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some, especially HR consultants usually gets involved in issues that are quite complex.
Yeah.
And has so many different facets to it that it can be quite a heavy weight sometimes for the consultants. And a lot of our community, lots of consultants handle it so beautifully, so professionally. And just really incredible how if someone tells you, "Oh, this is what I'm dealing with," you sit there with your jaw dropped all the time thinking, "It's still there, it's still looking at me and laughing," this and that. So I think a big shout out at this point to all HR consultants out there. You are doing an incredible job, an amazing job, and we really truly appreciate the support that you continue to offer businesses. So keep up the great work.
Yeah.
So I think that is that, but do look after yourself. Self-care is very important. It's a bit, the easiest analogy is when you're on a flight, isn't it? You are encouraged in case of turbulence or anything, put your own mask on first before you help the child or a young person next to you, isn't it?
And I often say you can't pour from an empty cup. You've got to look after yourself, and then you can give what you need to others.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so shall I just go with some of my tips on self-care?
Yes. If
Yeah.
you give us your tips on self-care, and I think also we can also look at tips on how employers or how people can be supported generally in the workplace to cope with Blue
Yeah.
Monday as well.
Okay, so interestingly, a couple of years ago, the Samaritans suggested rather than Blue Monday, we should have Brew Monday. But I mean, I think brew any day is a good thing. But
What sort of brew?
well, tea or coffee. But the idea was that actually you go and grab yourself a cuppa and maybe even grab a cuppa with somebody else. Grab a cuppa, ring a friend. If you're feeling low. I mean, I think one of the biggest tips that I have around sort of getting back into January is you need to listen to your body. You need to listen to your mindset and your body. And the beauty of being a freelance consultant is that I do have some flexibility over my diary. And so if there are times when I really am not in the right frame of mind to be sitting at my desk, doing stuff, I might take some time out. Because actually there's no point sitting there not achieving anything and beating yourself up over not achieving anything. So, there are times, and as I say, I don't buy into the whole, you've got to be fit in January, where I will think, right, that's it, I'm done for a bit. And I will go and put the kettle on. I will grab a very nice chocolatey biscuit that's probably still left over from Christmas or two. And I will, catch up on some personal messages. I'll ring a friend. I'll take the dog out for a walk. I'll just do something to get myself out of the headspace that I'm in and the struggle that I sort of feel that I'm facing in that moment in time. So I listen very carefully to my body. And also, I think sometimes around what support I might need. So it might be that I need to go and book some co-working space, or I might need to arrange to have a coffee with a contact or a client or somebody I haven't seen for a while. I'll get some things in my diary to put some variety in the diary so I can get out a little bit as well, not just be here doing, going through the motions and doing the normal stuff. I'll talk to people. I mean, I talk to you, I talk to, other close contacts, and we support each other. And that's really, really beneficial and helpful. And that comes back to that idea of, is it okay to not be okay? Well, actually, yes, it is. And talk to somebody about it. Have a chat with somebody and say to them, God, I'm having a mare of a day. I feel really miserable today and it's really hard. That's okay to do. Because actually, and what I found, is that actually you'll say that to somebody and they'll go, oh my God, yeah, I feel exactly the same. I feel just the same as you. It's really hard. So I think it's important to talk to people, talk to your close network, have a good network of people around you. I think take regular breaks. Make sure you take regular breaks. I mean, I always get caught up in the if I'm just trying to finish something off, the one thing that goes out the window is lunch or stopping. Although with the dog, she does come in and sit next to me and sort of paw my leg and sort of say to me, "Come on, Mum, we need to go for a walk." So I do get called out to go out. But it's easy to just keep going and keep working when actually you do need to take proper breaks and give yourself some headspace and clear your head for a moment, and to eat. Eat something, eat and drink, keep your fluids up, and make sure that you are actually looking after yourself all day. I think something else, I mean, tune into hobbies and things that you love doing outside of work. I don't get a lot of time for some of my hobbies. I'm very crafty. I like baking. I like, fabrics and crafting and scrapbooking and making gift cards and all sorts of stuff. I like walking. I like reading. I like listening to music. Sometimes I just go buy myself a magazine and think, right, I'm gonna, sit and read that with a cup of coffee. So, tap into your hobbies if you can, to take something that just takes your mind away from work, that you can focus on, that's a different focus. Quite often in the winter, because I feel the cold during the day when I'm sitting all day, I'll actually go up and just have a really nice hot soak in the bath. Some really nice bubbles, some really nice smells, or some bath salts or something like that. Big cup of tea and, some nice music, maybe even light a candle and just relax. I think get out in the fresh air. If you haven't got a dog, I think it would be good, as you say, it's dark in the morning, dark in the evening. Get out for a walk at lunchtime. Just get out. And, I mean, we find around here the dog walking community is amazing. You go out with a dog, you always see somebody they're always willing to have a chat. And, you do actually have some connectivity with other people, which is really nice. So even if you're not walking a dog, you'll probably see lots of dog walkers and they're always very chatty. So get out at lunchtime. I think maybe look at focusing on the positives. So don't look too much on some of the negatives. Think about what's gone well. Think about, your family, what you've got around you, what support you've got in place. Maybe book something to look forward to, some events or some coffee and chats with people, or, going shopping for the day. I don't know, anything. Just think about what floats your boat and get some things booked up to look forward to. Even if it's in a couple of months' time, you just know it's there and you've got it booked. For me, sometimes, going to the hairdressers and getting your hair done is quite nice. I have a Christmas birthday, so I often get vouchers for a beauty place just down the road. So I will go and book a massage or a facial or my nails or something like that. So I treat myself that way. And one of the other things is, actually, January can be quite negative around news feeds. And so if you need to, step out of the social media and the news feeds, even if it's just for a day, give yourself a break, stop being a slave to constant feeds and scrolling, because actually, if there's a lot of negative stuff out there, it can weigh you down. And the final one is actually around, maybe instead of thinking bigger long-term goals, actually think about maybe something like bullet journaling, where in the evening you think about the next day and you just write down 2 or 3 things that you really desperately need to get done tomorrow, and think that's all I'm going to focus on tomorrow. As long as those 2 or 3 things are done, I'm happy. So that can be a way of sort of bringing stuff into the sort of the now, the present, rather than this big scary long-term objective or goal that you think you want to meet. And you could try journaling, if you're really feeling a bit low, or you're trying to unpack how you feel. Sometimes journaling can be helpful. It's not something I do. I don't mind the bullet journaling with just sort of thinking about what I've got to achieve the next day, but some people like journaling and find it very, very beneficial. So those are my sort of strategies. Have you got any others? Is there anything there you think I've missed?
No, I think you've given quite an extensive of tips on self-care, and things that we touched on already, which include meditation. There's listening to music, reading. Some people may find reading quite soothing and sort of help them. Swimming helps others as well. So I think activities generally that you can do that takes you away from work and sort of helps to relax your mind a bit and helps you to really sort of get you a bit of energy back to focus generally truly helps with all that. And I think the other aspects of it, and I want to touch that on that quickly before we wrap up, is in the workplace. What can we talked about the self-care, and you're giving lots of tips on self-care in the workplace. What can be done to support people when people are feeling low, sort of around feeling blue and all those sort of things? What can we do to help people in the workplace? I think one of the first things you touched on very early on in the conversation is employee assistance programs. The other aspects of it can be team building activities, which can be done whether in person or virtually or etc. And it doesn't have to be, we are closing down for team building. It can be little things during the day that you can do as teams that bring people together, that get people talking, and that kind of provide that support in that environment where people can just really hopefully get off whatever is on their chest or is worrying them, and then move on and things like that. There are also aspects of, I know some organizations do meditation, isn't it, where they bring people in to lead yoga sessions and stuff like that sometimes. And that may well be as part of an employee assistance program or other things. And so there are so many different things. And actually in the workplace, one of the biggest but underrated thing is saying hello to somebody and asking them, how are you doing or how are you actually feeling?
Yeah, I mean, as a line manager, I think we have a responsibility to do that. I think, we should be saying to people, how are you doing? How's Christmas been? What's on your plate for January? Is there anything you need any help with? Just how are you? Hello, how are you?
Yeah, so that is that. So
Yeah, and of course, a lot of organisations will have mental health first aiders as well. So if you don't want to talk to your line manager, some people sort of feel they can't talk to their line manager about these things. There may be a mental health first aider in place which you could talk to, or there may be a colleague you could talk to, or a different line manager. So, you know, make sure that you use your workplace network, and make sure that you sort of tell somebody if you're struggling. I mean, it might be that you're struggling with workload, but make sure you talk to somebody and ask for some support. Somebody might be able to give you some support to manage your workload, or even just review it with you to help you sort of get your head around it, and get your priorities in shape.
yeah, and also being mindful of emotions and behaviors at work, isn't it?
Mm.
Generally, the fact
Yeah.
that you are feeling low, how you're going to interact with others might actually not be your best self, or it might not necessarily be. And sometimes you can take your sadness onto others, isn't it? You can project
Yeah.
how you are feeling onto other people, and so being
Yes.
of how you're feeling and how it might impact on other people is also very important. And equally, being mindful of how the other person might be feeling, and maybe the underlying reason of why they're acting the way they're acting, and to be a bit more empathetic generally help.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And of course, if you really are struggling, then, advice would always be maybe have a chat with your GP about how you're feeling. If you think it's a bit more than just Blue Monday or January blues, have a chat with your GP. Or, there may be options to speak to an occupational health advisor through your workplace as well, around how you're feeling. And of course, there are lots and lots of organisations out there. I mean, through EAP, employee assistance programs, a lot of them do counselling and support, and can help you even around financial issues. You can get debt management counselling as well. So with some of them, so it's always good to check what's available to you through an EAP program, and also that there's lots of other charities and organisations out there that will help support people. I mean, just to name a few: Samaritans, Mind, Calm, Sane Line. You could probably very quickly do an internet search and find something very local to you, if you feel it's a bit more than just dragging your heels into January.
I think, yeah, the gist of it is that there is support out there. There is
Yeah.
help out there, whether it's within the workplace, whether it's generally within the community, etc. So don't feel alone. Don't feel
No.
you've got no support, it's the end of the world. There are people out there, there's support out there. Reach
Yeah.
out to people, speak to people, speak to your colleagues, speak to your friends and your partners, etc., just so that hopefully people can support you or might be able to point you towards the right support that will help you put through that period. So, yeah, we would sum up our podcast today. Thank you very much, Charlotte, for sharing some of your own experiences with Blue
You're
Mondays, your
welcome.
coping mechanisms, and sort of around what you do with self-care. And I do hope that everyone listening to us is able to come up or find the right coping mechanism to help us all get through the rest of January and the rest of the year, so that we're not feeling low and sad, etc., but actually quite enthused and sort of geared up to face the rest of the year and beyond. So thank you very much for tuning in today and for listening to HR Voices podcast. Would love to hear what your views are on Blue Monday and whether you have got specific coping mechanisms to help you cope when you feel low or when you're feeling sad, etc., whether personally or through the workplace. If you'd like to come onto HR Voices podcast as a guest, do get in touch with us at HR Voices at hindependent.co.uk. That is hrvoices@hrindependent.co.uk. Or if you have a specific topic that you want us to talk about in one of our future episodes, again, do get in touch. Thank you very much, and see you all again soon. Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of HR Voices. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover or would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at hrvoices@hrindependence.co.uk. Tune in next time.